If you're into big, full-size American SUVs, then you know what the Ford Expedition is. It is one of the only competitors in this space next to the Chevy Tahoe and now the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. And today, I'm going to be bringing you a review of the off-road-centric Expedition, the Timberline. Now, on the exterior of the Expedition Timberline, there are a couple things that make it apparent that this is the Timberline, in fact. And of course, that's going to be first the orange accents all over the front. That includes this little stripe in the bottom part of the bumper, and of course you have the orange tow hook under the bumper as well. Just in general, with the new Ford Expedition that they released, you have these new headlights right here, LEDs. They have a similar design on something like the F-250. A lot of people find that controversial. I think it looks okay. It's just an Expedition, nothing special. Black Ford badge, of course. Now on the side, let's talk about the rims and stuff that you get over here. These are Goodyear Wrangler tires, all-terrain, that you get standard on the Ford Expedition Timberline, and these gloss black 18-inch rims that are definitely going to get dirty when you take this off-road. Now speaking of off-road, of course Ford has done quite a bit to this to make it a little more off-road centric and capable. Instead of having 9.8 inches of ground clearance like the normal Ford Expedition does, this one has 10.6, so you get about an additional inch of ground clearance that you're able to use when going off-road and going over big rocks or anything like that. Now, of course, some other off-road specifications I can give you are the approach and the departure angles, which are increased compared to the normal Expedition. The Timberline has an approach angle of 28.5 degrees and a departure angle of 23.7, which are higher by a marginal amount compared to the normal Expedition. Now, while we're up front here, let's talk about what's under the hood, because Ford has done something special for the Timberline. So under the hood of the Ford Expedition, just like you get in the F-150, is going to be the 3.5 liter twin-turbocharged V6 that you can get in something like the Ford F-150, except this one is kind of special. See, in a normal Ford Expedition, you get around 380 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque, but not in the Timberline. In the Timberline and the Blackout Stealth Performance Edition, or whatever it's called, you get 440 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque from the high output version of this 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6. Pretty cool. And of course, this one is four-wheel drive. You can get the Expedition in two-wheel drive, but of course the Timberline comes standard with four-wheel drive. On the back of the Expedition, let's talk about some things that are specific to the Timberline. You have the orange outline around the Expedition lettering, this silver bumper piece down here, which this is a cover for the towing stuff down there. If you have the tow package on this car, this specific one can tow up to 9,200 pounds in its current configuration. If you don't have it though, it is limited to 6,000 pounds worth of towing capacity. Now, let's go on, talk about the cargo space in the rear of the Expedition, if I can ever find the button to these things. Fords always keep them nice and hidden. It is an electronically opening tailgate. Oh, okay, never mind. We'll get to that in a second. Anyways, back here behind the third row, you have 19.3 cubic feet of cargo space. Behind that second row, you have 57.5 cubic feet of cargo space. And behind the first row, you have 106.4 cubic feet of cargo space to store whatever you want. Furniture, you could probably fit a tinier couch in here or something like that. But it is plenty of cargo space, and the third and second row electronically folding. That way you don't have to go around doing it for people. They can just do it right back here. Now, another cool thing on the Expedition is the ability to release this top piece of glass, which is the button I pressed before. You could get this on like the Ford Bronco Sport. Chevy Tahoe has this. A bunch of cars of this class have this, but yes, that way you could just throw things in here just in case you need to, like a small cooler or anything like that. Pretty cool that the Expedition has that, especially for practicality reasons. Now let's hop in, see what's going in the interior of the Expedition here. They have updated it. Like I've said, we've been in the Expedition before. It's nice. This screen straight out of the Mach-E in the F-150 Lightning. Same thing with the screen in front of me, straight out of the F-150 from when they updated it in 2020. Pretty cool. Now let's go over some of the other cool things in here. I'm not a big fan of the dial on the screen. They have a smaller screen you can get that I actually prefer. That is like if it was out of the F-150. It's the normal one that is horizontal instead of vertical, which, you know, for the most part, it's fine. But just like on the Mach-E, it's pretty laggy. It's comfortable in here. The materials I wish were a little nicer for over $85,000. They are a little harsh and the leather isn't the nicest, but you do get cool orange accent stitching across the interior and some cool orange plastic pieces that span the interior as well. Four-wheel drive, different drive modes down here. You have, of course, have off-road mode, sport, eco, tow and haul mode. And let's see, you also have a sand mode and a mud and ruts mode, just in case you want to take your Expedition off-roading. As for connectivity inside of the Expedition, you have a USB Type-C, a USB Type-A, a wireless charger for your cellular device, and you have more connectivity in here, plenty of storage, and a 12-volt socket. So plenty for the family. Multiple cup holders in this car, especially because you can haul up to 8 people on the interior of the Ford Expedition. Really cool. And you get a Bang & Olufsen sound system in this one, which it sounds pretty decent. That's what Ford uses across all of their models. Now, as for some technology going on inside of the Ford Expedition and safety stuff, this one is capable of having Blue Cruise, which is Ford's self-driving technology that uses your eyes to make sure that you're watching the road, so it is completely hands-free. This one has adaptive cruise control, lane centering assist. That way you don't have to do too much work on road trips, making sure you're not running into the car in front of you, which is nice. And on top of that, you do get this really nice panoramic moonroof. Now, I do like the rear seats of the Expedition. They feel a little more roomier than the Tahoe, but they don't feel as feature heavy. And by that, I mean that you don't have as much technology back here as you get in the Tahoe. It seems like you only have a single zone back here. Maybe that's different on the Platinum trims, but I know for a fact on something like the Tahoe High Country, get dual zone climate control and a better screen and display to display those climate controls, because you only get this tiny little one on the dial, which kind of looks cheap. And the rest of this design for the layout for the climate controls has been around since, what, the 2015 Ford Explorer. So I wish Ford would update that. But nonetheless, you do get heated seats, and it is nice, of course, to get a climate zone back here. Not every car has that. As for connectivity, 2 USB Type-C ports and a 110-volt socket that you could plug chargers or a blender into. In case you want to cook something on the road, you can do that. Plenty of knee room, plenty of headroom, though I wish it was a little more. If I sit straight up, my head is nearly touching the ceiling, which drives me a little nuts. More of that orange stitching throughout the interior back here. I would have thought this one would have had sunshades. That would have been nice for any small children, anything like that. But yeah, for the most part, it's okay. It's a little feature light. I wish there was some kind of center area where you could put your stuff on. I know this is configurable with captain's chairs, just in case you care about that configuration. You can make this a 7-seater. That's because you do have 3 more seats in the rear. So let's go check that out, see what's going on back there. Now, in the third row of the Expedition, it is a fairly nice place to be, starting with the fact that the outer seats in the third row are actually electronically adjustable versus the ones in the second row are manually adjustable, so that is nice, and they do recline just a bit. You have a USB Type-A on either side, plenty of cup holder space, and 12-volt sockets back here as well, plus it's pretty secluded from the rest of the interior. That way, you don't have to deal with your second row or first row passengers at all if you're in the third row, especially alone. It's a pretty nice place to be, though the backs of these seats are pretty harsh and the butt rests are not great either. Now, one thing I do want to complain about is actually the way of getting into the third row. See, in the Tahoe, the seat folds completely forward. It folds down, then forward like this. That way, it's super easy to get in. You get about 2 feet to get into the third row. Not in the Expedition. The entire seat, without folding forward, kind of lifts up. It only provides around 12 inches of room to get back here. And if you're 6 feet tall, it makes it incredibly hard and cumbersome to do. And I mean, if anyone is above the age of like 12, it's going to be annoying to get back into these back seats. Just a thought for Ford to kind of fix that process up, because it can be a little annoying to do. Now, driving the 2024 Ford Expedition Timberline, it is important to mention that this one has a rear locking differential, just in case you need that extra support when going off-roading, which is nice, but no disconnectable sway bars. There's no front locking differential. It's basically the bare minimum if you're having an off-road vehicle, which I suspect that many people who actually own this truck are probably not going to be taking it off-road. It's just cool looking. Get that extra ground clearance, the beefier tires, the extra stuff on the interior just in case you need to drive down a lowly forest trail. I don't really see this car being used at all in any kind of mildly intense, even off-road situation. Now the way it drives is I mean, pretty good. And if we accelerate, that 440 horsepower you get that pickup quite fast. It doesn't feel nearly as fast as something like the F-150 with this same powertrain, but it's still quick. And I think for the most part, it drives nice, it tracks straight. And overall, you feel like you're in a big commanding driving position. Maybe if we find a little thing that we could take this a little off-roading, but nothing crazy. Now, for fuel economy, if we pull up what we're getting right now, it's not great because this has 60 miles on it. It says we're getting 7.7 miles per gallon. That's not true. The actual average you're supposed to be getting in this is 17 miles per gallon, and it's okay. 16 city, 19 highway. It's nowhere near good. But you know what? For all intensive purposes, it is a big and heavy SUV. It weighs 5,400 pounds, I believe, which is a ridiculous weight. But overall, it drives well. It's not a speed monster by any case, and it doesn't get great gas mileage, but it insulates you from the road. It handles bumps very, very well, that off-road tires and everything like that, because that tire wall is so large, you don't really get much tire noise or road noise, so it insulates that as well. So for the most part, for a big family SUV, it's okay. Just remember that you could also spend $90,000 on something else that probably has a little more luxury features. Personally, I would get a Tahoe. I think they're quite a bit nicer, and you could get a High Country for 90 grand, and they're nicer. So, and yeah, I mean that, and they just released the 2025 mock-ups and everything like that, and the Tahoe looks incredible now. So it's kind of hard to back the Expedition. But if you are a big Ford fan, the Expedition is not a bad truck. It's not a bad full-size SUV. Just my personal preference falls in Chevy's favor. Now, if you're an off-road nut and you need to carry around a large family with some practicality in mind, this is a great car. Just remember, it is quite expensive. This one is priced at around $88,000, which is a ridiculous amount of money. My M4 costs less than that, just to give you some perspective. But for off-road features and everything like that, it is a very capable SUV. And like I said, it provides plenty of practicality for anyone. Just make sure you have the money to back up the price tag. Let me know what you think of this car in the comments. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more from us, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video.